Hello, Sally-Ann here, PT Skills, and today's bite-sized video, we are going to look at the CV system and the heart and the flow of blood around the heart. So, as always, pens and papers, get ready to geek out with me. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, CV systems, the heart. So title your notebook and off we go. Okay, so we're going to look at the heart. So, and we're going to look at the blood flow around the heart and the vessels that carry the blood around the heart, because you will need to know this, and you're probably going to get some kind of questions within this, within your A&P exams. Okay, so let's say we've taken some nice oxygenated blood in through the lungs, and the blood's traveled from the lungs and it's going to come into the left side of your heart via the pulmonary vein. So always think of pulmonary, anything with pulmonary in it is relating to the lungs. So pulmonary veins are coming into the heart, so therefore they're coming into the heart from the lungs, so they're going to have that nice oxygen-rich blood. So they're going to come into the left atrium, into the left ventricle, and then they're going to go out through the aorta. The aorta is like a big artery, so arteries carry oxygenated blood, and it's going to pump that oxygenated blood around the body for our muscles and tissues to use. So once the muscles and tissues have used that blood around the body, the blood is then going to be deoxygenated, so it's going to have less oxygen in it, and we need to head it back out through to the lungs. So the aorta has taken the blood all the way around the body, and we've utilized the oxygen, and it's now deoxygenated. So then the veins are going to bring the deoxygenated blood back up to the heart, and it's going to come in through the heart, through the inferior and superior vena cava into that right atrium, from the right atrium to the right ventricle, and then back up to the lungs via the pulmonary arteries. So remember, pulmonary relates to lungs. So pulmonary arteries are going back up to the lungs, where we can exhale that deoxygenated blood and start the cycle again. So you are going to need to know this. So we're going to go over it a couple of times within this lesson, and you're going to have a task at the end. Okay, so when we're bringing that blood in, we have valves within the heart as well. So there's a valve between each atrium and ventricle, and there's a valve between each ventricle and the vessel that's taking the blood out, basically so the blood doesn't backflow into that chamber. So we have atrioventricular valves. So in the left side, we've got the mitral valve, or you may see it called as the bicuspid valve. And in the right side of the heart, between the atrium and ventricle, you've got the tricuspid valve. So it's like a backflow valve. It's stopping the blood going back to where it came from. And then we have the aortic valve in between the aorta and the left ventricle. So that's stopping the blood come back from the artery. And then you've got the pulmonary valve, which is stopping the blood going back from the pulmonary artery into that right ventricle. So the valves, so you've got the semilunar valves are stopping the backflow from the arteries into the ventricles, and the atrioventricular valves are stopping the blood flow from the atrium to the ventricles. So you have 4 valves that you will need to know as well. And we're going to go through that in a whole process in a moment. So a little blood flow chart here might make it easier for you. So as I said before, with oxygenated blood coming in from the lungs into the heart by the pulmonary veins, or always remember that as the vein. It's the vein to the heart. So pulmonary veins from the lungs into the left atrium, left ventricle, and aorta. In the body, that's where that gaseous exchange is going to take place, or diffusion, where we're utilizing the oxygen and giving off that carbon dioxide, which we need to take back out. So going through the heart via the vena cava, right atrium, right ventricle, and out through the pulmonary arteries, back up to the lungs, so we can start that cycle once again. Okay, so before we go on to that task, I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to come onto my flip chart, and you're going to see some of my awesome skills of drawing again. So I'm going to ask you to draw something similar like this for yourselves. So I'm just going to put a box up here, which is going to be lungs, and a box down here, which is going to be your body. And I'm going to put 4 chambers. So we've got 4 chambers of the heart here, very crude. I am no artiste. I wish I was, but unfortunately we can't be good at everything, can we? That was a joke. So, okay, I'm going to use my, so let's label these up. So we've got left atrium, left ventricle. I always get my left and right wrong. Right atrium and right ventricle. And in between them, we've got those valves. As I said, we've got those valves. Okay, so I'm going to use my red pen for oxygen. So oxygenated blood coming in here via the pulmonary vein, yeah, the vein, into the left atrium. It's going through the atrium here into this valve. So it's either the mitral valve, or you might see it as a bicuspid. And that's an atrioventricular valve, so an AV valve. So it's going to come through there into that left ventricle. Okay, it's going to go out through the aorta, all the way around to the body. Okay, and we've got that valve there, which is easy to remember because it's going to the aorta. It's the aortic valve, which is a semilunar valve. Okay, round to the body, and in the body we've got that gaseous exchange. Okay, so once we've had that gaseous exchange, the blood is then, I'm going to use a nice blue colour because it's got less oxygen in it, so it's deoxygenated. So the blood has to go all the way back up into the right atrium via the superior and inferior vena, oh, can't spell, cava. Okay, so it's going back into the right atrium, into the right ventricle, and there's that other valve here, which is the, I'm going to write it here, the tricuspid, into that right ventricle, and then it's going to go back up to the lungs. So I'm going to take this route here, back up to the lungs, and it's going to go through the pulmonary valve, which is another semilunar valve, back up to the lungs via the pulmonary, really crude drawing, artery. Yeah, and this is where we're going to have that gaseous exchange again. Okay, so here's a nice picture, and now I'm going to set you a challenge to maybe explain this to someone or write it in your book. So let me just come back onto my FaceTime camera and share. Here we go. Wicked. Okay, so this is the challenge if you wish to accept it. I'd love to see some of your pictures as well, because I'm sure they're better than mine. So list the order of blood flow from the lungs to the body and back again. So you could do this in a list format, or you could do it how I've done it here. It'd be good to do it as I've done it here, because then you can kind of work through each chamber and see how that works and see what you can recall. And if you can't recall it, just go back over it and do it again. And within that, identifying, like I've done with my red and blue pens, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood within this flow diagram. So that is your mission for this bite-sized video, if you choose to accept it. Any questions, pop below, and I'd love to see those works of art as well. I might learn something. Anyway, have a good day, and we shall speak soon.